So what does it look like then for us as parents to like break down the walls and show humility? I think sometimes humility feels like exposure, like we're too vulnerable, and as parents, maybe sometimes we might feel weird about that, like threatened, like humble towards our kids. That seems like we're the authority here. So how does that relationship play out when we show humility in our parenting?
Yeah, so I remember also in high school, I was trying to figure this out for the first time ever. Like, oh no, I'm ruined. What do I do? So I asked a man named Tim Anderson at my church. I was like, what is humility? Like, can you define it for me? Like, how do you become humble? And he said, the way to become humble is through humiliation. And I was like,
No one likes to hear
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the humiliation of Jesus was the incarnation in the cross, and he willingly chose it. So the way that I define a humble disciple is someone who knows exactly who they are before God and chooses willingly to go lower. And so there's a lot of rights conversation going on right now. I've got my rights to this and my rights to that. And it's like, hey, look, you do as an American. But you know what we have as Christians? We have rights that were called the laid down. In fact, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords had every right to do everything. He's the king of the cosmos. And he laid that down. It says he didn't consider his deity something to be grasped or held onto. He laid down that right, the rights that come with being the Son of God, which I don't even fully know what that means, but it says the Father put all things under his authority. All things kind of means all things. So if anyone had rights to hang on to, it was Jesus Christ. But he willingly laid those down. So what does it look like to be humble? First of all, you have to really know who you are. And then you have to choose to take a step lower than what your rights are. And what that looks like practically is 4 things. And so this was liberating when I figured this out. And it's not like I figured out something that's novel. It's just I assimilated this for myself. And I was like, oh, I don't have to wince when I pray for humility. And I also don't have to guess whether I'm being humble or not. Humility of heart is intangible, but there's also clear, sure signs you're being humble. And kids love it. And in fact, it establishes our authority more. So the 4 things are this. You submit to authority. You serve people. You listen. And you confess when you mess up. And if you kind of look, I'm a little bit of a structure guy. So the reason that this sat so well with me is because I realized these are the positive and negative, the giving and receiving ends of both words and action. So when we submit to authority, we're receiving the kind of power and authority of someone else. You could think of that as negative action. In other words, you're receiving the actions of someone over you. Serving is proactively, positively using your actions to help other people. And then when you listen, you're receiving words, and when you confess, you're giving words positively. And so it covers the positive and negative side of words and actions. And in Ephesians 4:2, Paul says, be completely humble. And so Ephesians kind of unpacks what that looks like. And so it's difficult to look my 3.5-year-old daughter, Emma, in the eye and say, hey, Daddy made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I unjustly disciplined you. I didn't realize X, Y, or Z. I'm sorry. The temptation is to believe that actually discredits me, but what it does is it builds relationship and trust. And there's nothing more important to relationship and authority than true trust. And man, my parents modeled this for me. My dad's Canadian, and he moved to the South, and it's just an explosive combination. He's a miracle given. He became a Christian at 19, and had his own experiences, but God redeemed him, and he's sometimes rough around the edges. I'm never that way. No, as you know, Canadians are a little kind of abrupt sometimes because it's cold. It's like, we got to talk quickly. It's cold out. Let's get inside. And so, but he would always come to us or my mom and apologize. And I saw it modeled. There's that quote, kids are never good at listening to their elders, but they never fail to imitate them. That's from James Baldwin, which I don't agree with everything James Baldwin said, but that's where the quote comes from.
But that's a good quote.
Yeah, it was actually in the context of generational poverty in Harlem is when he said that in his essay, Fifth Avenue Uptown. And I think it's interesting to think about generational spiritual poverty. You know, we're trying to break generational sin. And the only way to do that is not to talk about it, but to do it. And so I think that that's our challenge as parents is let's take action. And so I love the fact that Jesus showed us how to be humble. He didn't just say, pray for it, feel in your heart, and hope that you have a humble heart. He said, come follow me. And in fact, in Matthew 11, he says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Pride is a burden we bear. He says, learn from me because I'm gentle and humble in heart.
Yeah.